Hello, I'm Aku and this is my 2022 Toyota BZ4X all-wheel drive. And here is my buddy Joonas and he's sitting in the boot of a CHR Plus, which is spanking new 2026 and a new Toyota model. And today our aim is to go into details of the new vehicle and also take a look at the differences between the BZ4X and CHR Plus. Namely, in terms of consumption, maybe we take a look at range, and obviously, since we're already in the boot, we're going to have some comparison on how typical everyday household items fit up in the cargo space of each vehicle.
Yeah, maybe many of you have already noticed from the brochures that these vehicles on paper are quite similar, and that's why we are checking how much space actually is in both of these vehicles.
Yeah, and especially since the CHR Plus, it's a front-wheel drive and it has a bigger battery, so that makes the question that if there is no much difference in the sense of room in these cars, why should anyone buy a BZ4X with a smaller battery? But that's what we're going to find out, and maybe we start with the cargo size test.
Yeah, that's the wisest way to start.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
So, fitting different everyday household objects to the trunks of BZ4X and CHR Plus. Let's start with something you all have at home. It's the Colt Commando. In the BZ, no issues. The other way around, probably sits upright if necessary. Will fit. How about in the CHR Plus?
CHR Plus, no problem to throw it in, no matter if you want to have it in both ways. Doesn't sit upwards, but if you need to put multiple of them, you can put them like stocked. That's not a problem, but not as high.
Okay, interesting. Maybe without this you could have it upright. Let's see. Can you fit an M4 upright?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much so. Okay. Let's take the next test subject, and it's the AK-47. Everybody should have at least one of these. In the BZ4X, like this, no problem. Doesn't fit upright. When you have it parallel to the vehicle, it fits nicely and snugly. How about in the CHR Plus?
CHR Plus just fits inside.
Okay, nice.
And fits nicely in the boot. But if you set it according to the vehicle, it doesn't fit. Just like 3 centimeters too long.
Can you close the lid?
We can try.
Let's see. Okay. Let's see how fast these are. 1, 2, 3, go. It's faster in the BZ4X. But the CHR Plus doesn't close with the AK-47 in the boot.
Yeah, and upright, not gonna happen.
Yeah, not a chance. Let's check the next everyday object. It's the mouse in the guns. Every house in Finland has like 3 of these. In the BZ4X, it's not quite possible to insert it in the boot. You have to do a small Tetris like this. Like this, no way. How about in the CHR Plus?
Well, also don't fit straight in, but
Okay.
if you just twerk it a little, then it behind the rear wheels, it fits really nicely. And of course, if you take it diagonally, then it fits also well. But in longitude, you need a flag. because it comes beyond the bumper.
I would say in real world use there is only really small difference between the boot size of the BZ4X and CHR Plus, and we can maybe test it out by having the mat. It almost fits. So the verdict when it comes to the boot size, the CHR Plus is almost as big as the BZ4X.
Yeah.
The CHR Plus has the funky door handles in the back. We also did some modeling on the rear seats. We are both 5'11" and Jonas has the front seat adjusted for him. The BZ4X has superior legroom in the rear, but the CHR Plus is not bad either. Unless you're having adults on the rear seats all the time, the car has enough room. If you plan on having a safety seat in the back, then you might have some issues with the CHR Plus. The door opening provides easier access with the BZ4X. So that's how the cargo space and also the space in the rear seats behind the driver stacks up between the two vehicles. And now it's the time to take a look how do these two vehicles line up when you're actually driving them. And we did a small driving test with me driving this new CHR Plus and Jonas driving my BZ4X.
Yeah, and now we are driving 100 kilometers per hour since the spring has come to Finland and the speed limits are higher again because the snow cover has melted away. So as you can hear the sounds from the tires, so the tire sounds are, well, you can hear them, but they are not like disturbing you. So without raising your voice, you can talk with your friend.
And here's some consumption figures. So the test was around 80 kilometers and the speed limits was mostly 80, some 100, that is kilometers per hour, and some 60 also. And the weather here is +7 Celsius, the pavement is dry, and of course the whole ride was on tarmac, so no gravel sports this time. And I would say that this is not a fair comparison because, like I said, my BZ is a all-wheel drive and this is a front-wheel drive, and also it seems that this vehicle has the summer tires on and my vehicle has the studless winter tires on. But even though, keeping that in mind, there was a significant difference between the consumption of the two vehicles, and I will have the consumption figures in the screen right now. Anyway, even if you were to drive BZ4X, which was a front-wheel drive with summer tires, I think there still would be some difference in the consumption because of the height and the size of the vehicles. But the consumption alone is not the only issue regarding the range of the vehicles, since this car, it has a bigger battery than the BZ4X. And I don't remember the exact figures, but I have them on the screen right now. Besides the consumption, the space, especially the cargo space, the space in the rear seats, there is not that much difference in riding these two cars, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think the most size comparison differences come with how the roof is shaped. So in the CHR Plus, the roof starts to go as a coupe, starting from the front seats, so it's a little lower on the back seats, and in the BZ4X the roof is smaller. It continues until the rear seats, and then it goes down above the trunk, so that makes the small differences.
That sounds reasonable because the name of the car actually is a coupe high rider, and we ride kind of high, and this is a coupe. So that's that name tells a bit more story than the BZ4X, which means beyond 0 for X miles or something like that. From inside, the CHR Plus is a lot like the BZ4X 2026, or just the BZ for the American market. There is a small dashboard and a 14-inch screen in the middle. The upholstery is cloth in the base model, but it is rather nice. There are 2 wireless chargers for the phone, no real glove box, but some room in the center console. From outside, the car is pretty nice looking for a Toyota. The plastic wheel arches are much more subtle than in the BZ. At least in Finland we have the 1.5 kilowatt outlet in the trunk. The infotainment is responsive and decent, but looks a tad old compared to newer vehicles. Toyota is coming up with the new system in the new RAV4. The ride is great, even though the lane assistant seems to need having a steadier grip on the wheel than in the BZ. Also, the driver monitoring system can be a handful. Perhaps the most important things in the car's own infotainment are the buttons to mute all the unnecessary beeps, and also the button to turn on the battery preconditioning. Having the AC controls in the screen, even with the Android Auto, is a nice touch. The AA is wireless. But now, the test we're doing now is we just drive this thing and we see how much the range actually is with fully charged battery in these kind of conditions. And we're probably not going to talk to the camera for 4 hours, so see you again later, maybe after 40%, and see to have some kind of projection on how long can we actually ride this thing. And then maybe in the end we do a small charging test, but then again it's kind of warm outside. This has battery preconditioning, so the charging probably will not be really interesting in this vehicle, but we will see. These are the results from the first leg. So the idea was to do some kind of range test for the vehicle, as in to drive the battery to 0%, but I think we failed that test at this point. And the reason is that I have set time to be at home today because I have duty tomorrow, and I will have to take the dog to the walk, and etc. etc. And it seems that this car has such a big range that we just don't have the time this evening to drive it from from 100 to 0. So we will probably get some kind of charging test too. And I just noted that if you remember the test we did in January when it was really cold, and now that it isn't really cold, we have actually driven further at the moment than we did in the whole cold weather test, and it's still 54% left in the battery. So when it's summer or even spring and not that cold, these things go really nice.
Yeah, the Finnish weathers and seasonal changes have huge effects, and this time it's so positive it makes it impossible to actually do a complete test. We should actually do this on a whole day, not in one evening.
And when it comes to driving this thing, like we noted, there's not that much of a difference between this and 2026 BZ4X. But the one thing funny about this car is that when we compare this to the previous generation CHR, which we actually had for a work-related trip in last September,
Yep.
and it was the full hybrid version. And now having driven this EV version, I would have to say that back then, like 7 months or so ago, if I had the chance to pick this vehicle over the hybrid one we got from the carpool, I would have gone with this one, because this is nicer to drive, more cargo space, and in this kind of weather the range is not the limiting factor. Actually, I think the range in the hybrid is like 700 kilometers or so. So we probably, if we had taken this instead of the hybrid, we would have saved maybe one charging event with the hybrid than this one. As in, we only had to fill up the hybrid once during that drive, and this car we would have probably had to charge twice.
Yeah, something like that.
And it's a lot nicer to drive this one than the hybrid one.
Yeah, they are like totally different cars.
But it's still like 150 kilometers back home, which we're gonna do, and the sun is slowly setting down, so shortly we will be able to see how the lights on this vehicle work in the darkness.
Yeah.
The lights were not that great. For the second leg, we cranked on the battery preconditioning. It seems that it increases the consumption by 2.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. We just tested if the car charges nicely, and it did, so we left it at that. The maximum charging power in this car is 150 kilowatt, but in order to reach the peak, you have to start with the lower state of charge. In the end, we did 300 kilometers with the car, and there was still 23% left in the battery, even though we did use the preconditioning for the last hour or so. Without the battery heating, the car would probably pass the 400 kilometer mark in these conditions quite easily, and 500 kilometers in the summer temperature is not impossible. All in all, the CHR Plus seems like a pretty nice car. The biggest issues are the already bit outdated infotainment and the slowest 400-volt charging system when you compare it to the other new EVs. I would totally recommend to pick this over a BZ if the room is enough for you. Like all good things, this test drive is coming to an end, and it is time to pick up my own vehicle from the Toyota retail parking lot.